Hey folks, welcome to my channel. My name is Joy, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the do's and don'ts of writing a personal statement. Of course, I'm going to start with the don'ts, get the bad part out of the way first, and then I'm going to go into the do's of how I think you can perfect your personal statement for college applications. I've been an admissions reader for multiple universities for 4 years now, and I'm going to go over those insider tips, what admissions officers and what admissions readers are thinking as they're reading personal statements, specifically the do's and don'ts again. Before I get started, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Try to release videos every week so you'll never get bored. And then if you appreciate the content, go ahead and hit that like button and that notification bell so you know exactly when I release my new videos. All right, so today, again, we're going over the do's and don'ts for writing a personal statement, and I'll start with the don'ts. The thing I try to harp on a lot when I'm talking about personal statements with folks is you never want to use a moralistic or preachy tone because it just never comes off right, especially if you're a teenager going into freshman year. If you're spending your time in your personal statement talking about how much your peers suck or how horrible your teacher is, then it just comes off as kind of whiny and preachy, like somehow you're better than everyone else in your school. And I think you're better off spending your time in your personal statements really discussing yourself as a person, and then if you are in an environment that you don't necessarily agree with the way things are done, how you're gonna make that environment better, how you're gonna make your community better, how you're gonna make your school better. So I would instead focus on those things. So that's my first don't. My second don't is, this may be obvious, but I wouldn't be going over it if I didn't see it sometimes. So the second don't is, don't discuss money or securing a high-paying job as a reason that you're applying to a specific school or a specific major, field of study, program of study. It's not the reason that colleges are looking for to have students. We want to know that you're curious about learning, ready to do good in the community, better yourself, better the folks around you, learn, innovate, create. And if your reason for going to school and you put in the personal statement, even if it is your personal reason, keep it personal. That's a valid reason to earn more money or secure a high paying job. I think that's a valid reason. But just keep, not the right place. Don't put it in the personal statement. And then I would say the second thing, and it's a little nuanced. It's not always a strict don't. But, going on and on about the school's rankings or how good they are, schools already know that. They don't want to hear it. I've even heard admissions officers say that we don't really put that much merit into, a ranking of a school, just because, the criteria can be all sorts of anything that has nothing to do with what they value at a particular school. So don't go on and on about rankings. It's different than saying, yeah, I want to go to this program because you have a good psychology department or you're ranked high in this field that I want to study. That's all valid, but just don't go on and on. It comes off as kind of a brown nosy teacher's pet kind of thing. Just don't do it. And then I would say you can discuss political controversial topics, but don't see that your personal statement as 650 words where you get to go off on a tirade about your personal beliefs and don't really have any kind of reflection or introspection or discussion about how college is even related to the politics or the controversial topics that you're going off about, whether it's religion, money, politics, or so forth. So don't do that. That's my first set of don'ts. And then another thing I would say is, don't simply just list your awards and achievements, regurgitate them in your personal statements like it's a resume. Anytime I'm seeing like, I did this, more so in undergrad personal statements, I would say that's okay to some degree in grad statements. But if you're writing a personal statement for undergrad admission and you're just relisting your resume, that's really not what colleges are looking for. In fact, the personal statement should be a place where we as admissions readers and officers are learning something new about you that we don't already know. And most times those awards, honors, and achievements are already listed somewhere in your application, if not on a supplemental resume that you have to include. So don't just regurgitate information. Personal statements should really be the opportunity where you're telling us something that we haven't found out in the resume or transcript or awards and achievements section. But at the same time, don't be modest if there's no reason to. If you're an award-winning pianist, if you've placed first at National Robotics Competition, if you started a nonprofit and you've raised $1 million in the last 5 years, that is something that you don't need. Those are things you don't need to be humble about. Share those things in your personal statements. Those are amazing achievements, and no reason to not list those things, because you don't get that kind of nuance sometimes in a resume or in the honors and achievement section. So really go in depth about those particular things. But again, don't just simply relist everything that you've already put in your transcript and resume. Some more don'ts I'll go over quickly. Don't go over the word count, especially on like the Common App and Coalition app, because it just cuts off. You may think that you're actually getting extra words, more words than everybody else, but you're not really, because it honestly just cuts off, and then we're left like in the middle of a story not knowing how it concluded. Definitely don't plagiarize, don't lie or exaggerate, because if we see something, we read something that doesn't sound quite like it's turning over all the way, or this doesn't, I don't know if this is real, or even I want to verify this, especially after the recent college admission scandal. It's going to be easy to see. I don't often do this, but if a student is talking about something that's extraordinary, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that I think it's a lie, but if I want to put their accomplishment into context, I will Google it. I will look on social media accounts to really put that into context. So if you lie or exaggerate, admissions officers will find out eventually, whether it's before you submit, before the decision deadline, or before the decisions are made, or after, when you're a freshman and you're like, but I've already spent a year here, and now you're kicking me out. You don't want that to happen for sure. All right, and then the last don't, you can, it says, don't submit the exact same essay. You can for sure use the same essay material. But if you do, just make sure you don't accidentally say the wrong school name, or talk about applying to a computer science major when at this school you're actually applying to human-centered design. I don't know. So just be careful about using the same essay. Don't, copy and paste it, because you're bound to make a mistake and leave something in there you don't mean to. And then I kind of said this before, but don't repeat information. Don't be redundant. I'll read an entire application from start to finish, and that includes grades, honors, personal statements, and so on. So if you're just repeating the same thing, again, you're losing opportunity to say something that's new and different. And then quickly on the do's, because I think these are pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to reiterate them. Use present tense. It's more active. It tells a better story. I feel more engaged when I'm reading an essay that's in either present tense or use active voice. So you'll hear teachers say this all the time, but passive voice really does affect your essay and personal statement that much. So avoid passive voice as much as possible. And that's not the same as past tense, but it's very similar. So active voice, present tense as much as possible. Proofread, have somebody you know and trust proofread for sure. Again, when we're reading personal statements, it's really not about the writing quality, it's more about the content. But if there's lots of typos, lots of grammatical errors, it makes it hard to understand exactly what you're trying to convey. So avoid that. Other things, definitely do provide an explanation if you have irregular grade patterns. So if you had straight A's 9th, 10th grade, and 11th grade, you have like a C first semester, and it comes out of nowhere, just explain that, whatever the matter is. Unless your reasoning is, I had a bad teacher. That's not a good explanation, a valid explanation. So if you have a crazy grade trend, I moved to a different state, or I was out for 6 weeks with mononucleosis, or as unfortunate it is, I had a parent die, so I had a hard time. But those are the kind of explanations we're looking for. So do explain irregular grades. I said this before, but you definitely need to get feedback from somebody you trust, whether that's a friend, a counselor, a teacher, or your parent. Have someone read your essay, because I see a lot of times students be too humble, so they don't want to say what their actual achievements are. And a person who's looking on outside can say, hey, you remember you did this and you didn't mention it? I think you should mention this, because it's a really good and important part of your life. And I think you're not mentioning it because you're trying to be too humble. So definitely get somebody you trust to read it, and they can provide that type of feedback. And then some other stuff, it's always good to be specific in your narrative. So don't just say, I'm interested in science because, or I'm interested in being a computer science major because I think, I just am. You really need to say, I'm interested in being a computer science major because I've had these experiences, and through these experiences, it kind of cemented my love for the field. Or, over the last 8 years, I've been a tutor at this organization teaching kids how to code, and that experience has really shown me how coding can help change a person's life and change the world. Like, those are the kind of specifics I'm looking for. Not just that you love computer science, but why do you love it? When did you start loving it? And what do you want to do with that love? Those are all the things I'm looking for. Those are my do's. Those are my don'ts. Hopefully those were helpful. I appreciate y'all tuning into the video. Again, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss when I release new videos. We're going over everything: college admissions, personal statements, what happens after you hit submit, what happens if you want to go to grad school, all those things. So, and don't forget to like the video. I really appreciate it. And last but not least, if you have a question for me about anything college admissions, I do my best to answer every question. Go ahead and leave a comment below, and I will get to that comment and answer your question as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will talk to you next time. Bye.